Raider.
What's going on, podcast fam? It has been a long, and I mean a long time, but I'm back with another episode of the Brang Da Popcorn podcast, where where we review movies, TV shows, and we interview the occasional guests. And today I have a guest with me today, first guest of 2024, believe it or not. He is a writer, creative, and he will be telling us about his new work today. Please give a warm welcome to Mr. Dave. I'm going to say your name all types of wrong. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Schwartz? Did I get it right?
Schwartz, yes. No
Okay,
CH, no Schwartz. Yeah, just Schwartz. Yeah.
I got it right. How you doing, sir? How you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Hanging in there.
Hanging in there, hanging in. All right.
That's right.
So, um, as like I said, y'all, we're gonna talk to this man a little bit, and so sir, just tell us a little, like, just like, tell us where you're from, so people can get a brief description of you.
Sure. So I'm a full-time comic book artist. I've been a full-time comic book artist for about 10 years now. I come from Detroit, Michigan. I'm actually a college professor at the College for Creative Study in Detroit. And so that's sort of like my part-time gig, but I primarily just am a pencil for hire. So I work, for all kinds of comic book writers, primarily those who are promoting books on Kickstarter, like I'm doing myself now. And I've been, like I said, doing this for about 10 years. I'm also just an all-around artist, so you can kind of see behind me. I've got like a whole rack of paintings and a big thing of abstract paint. So I try to do a lot of different creative things on the side, not just comics. But I love storytelling. It's been something that I've been, really wanting to do since the beginning. When I started out, wanting to self-publish my own books. So I was doing a lot of writing and drawing. But I really wanted to focus on drawing and really getting my skills up to par. So that's why I kind of switched over to doing that for the last few years. And I did during 2020 a treatment for my my new series called Confederate Monster. And I did 3 issues of that in 2020, and then I didn't have time to get back to it. I was just super busy after that. But now I'm finally back to it, and I'm super excited to finish out the book.
All right, all right. So you said you've always had like a knack for like the creative writing and the drawing. My question is, like, what made you catch the creative bug? There's a story. Everybody catches that bug. They catch that itch to want to create things. What's your story behind that?
It was comics. When I was a little kid, one of my favorite things to do was to take a trip with my Uncle Joe. I think everybody's got like an older, uncle or friend or brother or something that's introduced them to comic books. So, for me, it was my Uncle Joe. He took me and my brother when we were really little to his comic book store, and we walk up the long stairs to the attic where the comic book store was at the top of the building, and had these big skylights and stuff. It was very cool. And the whole thing for him was, you can get one book. Like every time we go, you just pick out a book. And then I started my collection that way. So I just was collecting, one issue at a time. And I still to this day really shop with my eyes, so I'm looking for the art that really pulls me in, not so much the story because I'm an artist, but again, I want to be drawn into things that I feel like are really well done. And so I did that when I was a little kid, and I just started picking not only my favorite book but then my favorite like splash page out of all those books. and then trying to draw that splash page as closely as I could to what I saw. That's kind of how I got started. And so I did that for a long time. And, I just kind of blossomed from there. And it's funny because I've taken probably every turn that you can possibly take in creative fields, between, traditional illustration, graphic design. I was a creative director for a long time, teaching. Then I just found myself back to comics because I got the itch when I was younger, and I just, I got to keep going.
Okay. No, well that's all right. Well, also I want to know, since we talking comics, me, I'm a comic head myself. Uh when it comes to like the way you can like the way you draw, like your art style, would you say do you take any inspiration from any comic book artists that you grew up like admiring?
Oh, absolutely. I honestly, it's funny because I wouldn't say right now in my style, the way that I've kind of refined my style over the last several years. I'm more inspired by kind of modern or current comic book artists. So like some of my big influences are like Francis Manapul, Sean Gordon Murphy. I loved Joe Mad like way back in the day. I absolutely loved his way of just exaggerating a lot of the human anatomy. Um, and so, I've also really been incredibly inspired by Ryan Otley, from Invincible. I mean, he's probably one of my biggest influences. If you really look at my work, you can really, I think, see the Ryan Otley influence in it. But honestly, above all of the more well-known comic book artists, one of my bigger influences as well is kind of a lesser-known comic book artist. His name is Joseph Cooper. He and I actually collaborated on one of my creator-owned books called Feast or Famine. So anybody who's familiar with the book Feast or Famine, Joe drew that whole book for me, and I wrote it and I colored it. And I asked him to draw it for me because I just didn't feel like I was up to par yet. I was still kind of learning and growing. And so I hired Joe to do that book. And, I worked with Joe probably over the course of 2 or 3 years, not only doing that book, but doing another graphic novel with him. And so I saw his work come in every day and I studied it every day. So I would say I get a lot of my influence from him as well, just because I was looking at his beautiful artwork every single day. I had no choice but to be absorbed into my brain.
Right.
So
Okay. So my next question to you is like tell us I wish I could bring it up, but my screen will not let me. Could you tell us a little bit about your Kickstarter that you're running now? Like I said, I want to bring it up, but my screen is just not cooperating with me.
that's okay. No big deal. Um, so it'd be pretty easy to find, I think. It has a pretty unique and interesting title. So again, it's called Confederate Monster. It is basically a cowboy Frankenstein in the Civil War, fighting against the Confederate, soldiers. So it's really interesting. So the premise of the book largely is we catch up with the classic Frankenstein characters 8 years after they reanimated the monster. So, these characters have kind of gone through a lot. There's a lot of things that have changed. And one of the biggest things is Igor, the lab assistant, has actually absconded over to America because originally the story was set in Germany. So he is absconded over to America and he is hiding out in Confederate Virginia. And so the Confederacy pretty quickly figures out that he is this, infamous lab assistant who helped bring, a dead body back to life. So they kidnap him and they force him to reanimate all of their dead soldiers. So we basically get to, experience the traditional Frankenstein story and all these, classic literary characters. But it's just told in a very different way. We're getting away from that same old story. One of the things that I discovered in researching this book was, how unprolific the Frankenstein like myth is and in the way that its story is told. If you really look at like other classic monsters like zombies or vampires. They have all kinds of other stories that are completely apart from the Bram Stoker original tale. Whereas Frankenstein's not really that way. It's really just the same exact story, just retold over and over and over, just in a different, time or setting or what have you. Or Young Frankenstein's case in a satire. So, for this book, I really wanted to tell a different story that has the themes of Frankenstein, but just in a fresh, new way.
Yeah, like as I was listening to you talk, and you had mentioned that, like I had to think about, like, yeah, there really hasn't been any nuance to the Frankenstein story. I mean, Van Helsing tried, and we saw how how that went.
Yeah, I mean, it was an interesting take on the character. I'll give you that, and there have been some iterations of the character that are used in a unique way. But I think by taking these classic stories that or characters that everybody's familiar with and putting it into a setting that is unfamiliar for these characters, but yet a little familiar for us, it again it puts another little twist on it. And like I was saying, in researching this book, it was amazing to me how many parallel themes that the Frankenstein story explored are prevalent and pretty, I would say, important to the story of the Civil War. So, in and of itself, I feel like there's a synergy there that I couldn't ignore. And when I just dove into it more as a writer, I just felt like this is just too good not to, create myself. So that's why I wanted to do everything myself, because I felt like it was just so good.
Right. I'm also going to put the link to your website in the chat because as you were talking, I was scrolling through your art, and I must say I do like the art because it's kind of cartoony, but it also has a mature pop to it, which is for me. Like if people know me, I love like I said, I love classic comic books, but I love more adult themed comics that not afraid to kill somebody off or get into more you know topical things, and that superhero stories are fun, but also I like stories that also have meaning. That's always been me. Um, One of my favorite comics, just many lines of X Men. It's really not more. It's not. It's more so of the superhero stuff. It's more of the topical stuff that goes on that mutants have to face, like how other minorities have to face in the world. That's stuff that I like. But judging from your art, like I really do like. Well, for one, I, um, I like the I like the color, I like the color choice of some of this artwork, and it even looks like it still looks amazing in black and white, which for a lot of artists is not that easy to do, to portray the art
Mhm.
well in black and white. Because I've read a lot of comics and manga where the art in black and white does not translate very well, and it does. So I will say you do got that going for you, and like I said, I am going to put the link to this man's um, website in the chat. Let me go ahead and do that now. But also, so tell me about your time in Michigan. Like growing up in Michigan, how was it for you?
Oh, I absolutely loved growing up in Michigan. I come from more of I would say the suburbs, or a smaller town, a little farther away from where I live now. So I actually had a chance to grow up in a very wooded area. My parents lived on 5 acres of land, and we had just dense forest all the way around us. So, as I was, coming up, it was instead of the street lights, it was, you better be outside of that woods by this time so I can see you. But I mean, my brother and our friends, I mean, we would go into that forest, we would disappear all day long, and we would come back through the same way that we went in. And it was fun. That's what I loved about Michigan, is that you kind of have the ability to have some wooded areas. You've got a lot of lakes, you got a lot of beaches. And I've just only recently started to explore the Upper Peninsula, the northern part of Michigan. I've largely been more in the southeast area for most of my life. But I've had a chance to do some, shows and festivals that are a little bit northern. And, I've had a chance to go out to Colorado a couple of times in my life. And the Upper Peninsula of Michigan is very similar to Colorado in ways. I mean, not exactly. We don't have all the amazing mountains and scenery that they do. But like the trees and the hills and everything up there is it's beautiful. But like I said, I live just about 10 minutes out of Detroit now, so I'm very much in the city. But it's funny you should say, because my wife was just commenting the other day. We just saw a little skunk outside of our window, and we've got skunks, we've got groundhogs, we even have a neighborhood deer. We got a literal buck in our neighborhood that's just like wandering around from yard to yard. So Michigan is just all kinds of fun. There's all kinds of different things to do, and I absolutely love Detroit. We were just down in Detroit not too long ago, and all the new things that they're bringing there, the revamp that Ford has done to the train station in Detroit, is just amazing. My wife and I just took a visit there. They just opened it up to the public last week, and it is amazing to go down there and just see how different it is. Because I went to school in Detroit, so I know what it was like 20 years ago, and it was very different 20 years ago. But it's really nice now, and I couldn't imagine myself living anywhere else.
Yeah, so we speaking of Detroit, me, my family from Chicago,
Oh,
so you know, when it comes to football rivalry, Detroit Lions, but I must say, like this past season, I've never seen the city of Detroit, well, just Michigan in general, be so unified when behind the Detroit Lions, were the laughing stock for years. So, did you have, like, since you were 10 minutes outside of Detroit, like, did you get to see up close person, like how like the hype around all that, how it was?
oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I think just the fact that you not only had the Lions doing well, but the University of Michigan, the Wolverines, they got their championship. I think that there's that energy in Michigan right now. There's a revitalization. It's been happening for a long time, but there's just something about this last couple years that has just been a huge boom. I think that translated into the Lions. I mean, I don't know what got into them, but I think that I am a big believer in energy,
Right.
and so I think that there's just something about the intention that has been brought into the city of Detroit to revitalize it, revamp it, and to breathe new life into it. And I think that energy has translated into things like the Lions doing well. Now, we could just get the Tigers and the Red Wings to follow suit. That would be great.
So like I said, there's a new energy. So like I said, because I really haven't had a chance to talk to many people, still in the city of in Detroit in the state of Michigan. But like, would you say like that businesses and whatnot have starting to thrive more just because of all the attention that the city is getting now? Because we know for years Michigan was kind of like a forgotten city that they would just not try to fund any, like try to put any funding into. Many places, many companies left Michigan or they went bankrupt. Like, would you say like there's more of a revitalization now on the business side as well?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, one of the big tent poles of this revitalization of the train station in Michigan, and just for people who are unfamiliar with the train station, so the train station has been a architectural marvel ever since it was built back in the 20s. Maybe even earlier than that. I'm not really sure, but it's that old because I know because my dad used to ride the train out of there when he was in his 20s. And my dad is 85 years old, so it was pretty back then. In the history of Detroit is when it was in its heyday. Now it ran until, and I didn't realize this because I thought it closed down much earlier, but it ran it up until I believe 1988, and then it was shut down, and it had sat there abandoned until 2018. And I believe that there were sequences of the Batman versus Superman movie that were shot inside of the train station. So when they're battling one another in that destroyed, setting, that's the train station in Detroit. And so Ford came in 2018 and said, we're going to revitalize this. We're going to create, offices for us. But what I didn't realize until I went there and I walked around is that Ford has actually created not only a space for their offices, but large open spaces for other smaller businesses, smaller tech businesses to come in, have space, and to re, uh, create new technologies that are going to help us in a myriad of different ways, not just in the automotive industry. So there's all kinds of small tech startups that are flocking to Detroit, especially in that train station, Michigan Central area that it's located in. And I'm really excited about that because, again, I didn't know anything about that until I went to this train station and they, started telling us about it. I was like, wow, like I didn't realize we had all these solar, startups coming and robotic startups coming. And Michigan has the first electric road that you can drive on, and it charges your car while you're driving, so it's really, like I said, things are changing rapidly. And you were just commenting, it's not just for these big corporations like Ford, it's for the small business owners as well, as I've seen.
Right. So for your, for your business, like for what you do, would you say that like how is the creative, like when it comes to, like artists and writers, how is like is there like a little, is there somewhat of a network for writers in the, I would say Michigan Midwest, that that you've kept in contact with, or you connect with?
So I primarily connect with writers and other artists and creators, believe it or not, just on Facebook, which is kind of weird. For a long time I was connected to a lot through Twitter, and then I've sort of over the years moved over to Facebook. I just find it to be with like Facebook groups and things. I just find it to be a bit easier to connect with people, and I'll be honest. A couple of years back, I was sort of on the fence as to whether or not I wanted to continue to, do this comic book stuff or if I was going to do something else. And so I put the word out there and just said, hey, if anybody wants, an artist that I can tell you does pretty good job, and I can do it for a pretty good price, and I can do it lightning fast. So I was able to get hooked up with some really great writers. I can name drop a couple. Caleb Palmquist, who does. We did Vampire Detective in Space together. Right now, he's got a series on Kickstarter called Dragon Grit, which is doing phenomenally. Maybe he's got all kinds of different series out there. Unicorn Vampire Hunter is probably his most successful book, next to Dragon Grit. I've also worked with the folks over at Bad Bug, Mike Tenner and Scott Wilkie. I've been working with those guys on their anthology series Roseblood. We actually just finished a second installment of their series, Undercity Tales, which was pretty fun. I just finished that earlier this year. So yeah, again, and I've been working on a book with another friend of mine. His name is Zach Chapman. Zach he and I do a series together called Dino Knights. It's like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles with dinosaurs. So it's super fun. It's very, very Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles esque. Again, I find that, by just making these, small personal connections with people, you start to just meet more people and more people and more people. And all of the names that I've just described, we all know one another. We've all either, promoted one another's work or worked together, collaborated together on projects. And it just, it grows from there. I recently this year, I just taken on two or three new creators that I haven't worked with before. Some that were looking for somebody to get something done really quick, and I just needed to knock it out. And then others who are just planning for the future, and they just want to bring me into their fold. I was doing a book earlier this year called Superbud. It's basically like a strain of marijuana that when you smoke it, it gives you superpowers. So like it was super fun. I really love the book. But I just got brought onto it because the previous artist couldn't do it anymore. So I was, brought on to do issues 4 and 5. And again, like I said, the network just continues to grow the more you meet people and talk to people and just see what's out there.
Right, right. My next question to you is for for aspiring comic book artists out there. What would you say has been the hardest challenge for trying to make it as a comic book artist?
I would say the most difficult part is tackling my own inner critic. Because I've actually been very blessed that I've had a lot of support in my comic book career. A lot of people that just have worked with me and just really build up my ego and help me to remind myself that I am good and that I know what I'm doing, and that I bring something to their projects that elevate their projects. Because that's really what my job is to take the vision of the writer or the creative team and to translate it in such a way that either blows them away and it was too much that they just couldn't even believe what I did, or they come back and they say, "Oh, you know what? This is exactly what I wanted. It looks exactly how I want it to be." So that's really what I'm striving for. Um, Honestly, I feel as though if I can get past my own inner critic every day, I've succeeded. So
Okay. Now, would you say it is hard, like when you're drawing or whatever? Would you say that it's hard to bring your ideas to paper, or it's just as easy as riding a bike?
I would say most of the time, I think it's kind of like riding a bike. I would say my creative flow is really well connected. I hardly have ever experienced artist block, and I guess I got to count myself lucky in that regard because I know a lot of artists that struggle with that. Even writers, obviously writers block. And I would say I struggle more with writer's block than I do artist block.
Right.
Because I've had more experience drawing. So when I first started, though, I would say I still had a lot of anxiety. When I sat down at the drawing desk every day and looked at the script and what I needed to draw that day, sometimes it was very intimidating, especially when the script is like, it's a giant cityscape and it's a car chase and there's explosions and there's a bridge. And it's like, oh my God, how am I going to frame this? And not only how am I going to frame it, but how am I going to draw all this? So I think after doing page after page after page after page for many years now, I have a process. It's just something that my mind automatically kind of kicks into, and I think it's just like coloring. Because I started out more as a colorist than a penciler or an inker. And I think with my coloring process, for me, I had to rely heavily on just my knowledge of color theory and my understanding of lighting and mood and how to, create certain color schemes to signify you're in this scene with these colors and now we're in a different scene because we've changed the colors. So all that is just practice, practice, practice. And I tell that because I'm a teacher, so I get asked that all the time by my students, how do I improve? What's the magic trick? And it's like there's no magic trick. It's just repetition, my dude.
Right, right. So also, like you brought up teaching. Now, for me, I know for me, it's teaching is out the question for me on anything. I just don't have the patience. But for you, like, when did you also realize that teaching was a skill that you were also suited for? Like, what made you want to go out there and teach the next generation of artists, or just people that just want to have a new skill for a hobby? Like, what made you think, oh, I can do that?
Yeah, I mean, um, I don't really think that I ever it's funny because I don't think I've ever been asked that question. I I got asked to teach. The first time I ever taught was for a youth camp for the summer. So the college that I teach at, that I went to back in 2004, um, I I got asked to do a very short 1 week um, character design camp for like 8 to 13-year-old kids. And you know, I don't know. It's weird. I just never doubted myself that I couldn't do it. I guess I just always assumed like, oh yeah, like you know how to do this. Like you have a process for this. You can teach kids how to do this, no problem. And I think obviously the first few years, I was still feeling it out. I was still learning. But now it's old hat. It's very easy for me. I will say that it does take a lot of practice to have the confidence in yourself where you can get up in front of a group of people, even if they're kids. Actually, especially if they're kids, because kids are brutal. They do not hold back. Um, so they'll say stuff where you're just like, what? That's a little mean and inappropriate. But it does take a certain amount of confidence to get in front of a group of people and just command the room. And so again, the same type of thing, just repetition, practice, doing it over and over again. You just become comfortable. But part of building my confidence too was doing interviews like this, and my own YouTube content. I started out doing some YouTube content in the beginning. I dug it. I did it for a little while, but it just wasn't for me. I stopped doing it. But again, I'm grateful for having done it though, because it was practice in building my ability to speak eloquently and to have confidence to talk without being nervous. So it all plays into, I think what you need going forward, even if you don't see it in the moment.
Right. Okay. Okay. Well, I do commend you because, like I said, teaching is not easy.
No, it can be tough from time to time. I teach at the college level now, so it's a little bit less challenging. You don't have to really. It's not like babysitting. You're not like corralling a bunch of 8 and 13-year-old kids. But I would say, college has its own bag of obstacles. I mean, most of these kids are dealing with really adult things that, are very hard to, overcome. I've had kids come to me in tears sometimes, and it's not about their classwork at all. It's,
Right.
things that are totally personal. So, that's something that's part of being a teacher that I'm just kind of still figuring out and still kind of, trying to understand how best I can help the student while at the same time not overstepping my bounds, because that's not necessarily like my job. I'm not a therapist, but like I see them. I'm an artist. I understand what they're going through, so I always am open to having conversations with my students that on a personal level and just saying, hey, like, tell me what you're worried about. Tell me what your fears are about. Let me offer some advice. One of the things that I do at the beginning of every class that I teach is a 5 to 10 minute meditation. And that's actually something that's starting to trickle into other classes from what I hear, which is kind of cool. But I've just noticed that a lot of students have a problem with anxiety and anxiety related issues. And a lot of it goes to shallow breathing and not being able to actually breathe correctly. So I'm hoping that by doing more meditations at the beginning of my classes, it helps to, alleviate some of that anxiety and stress that they're going
Right. Okay. Well, I might just do some of that myself because all life is difficult sometimes.
through. That's right. Got to breathe, get a full breath.
Yeah. Sometimes I can't even afford that. That's how broke I am. Oh. But no, I want to ask you, like, the the age old saying, life imitates art and vice versa. Would you
Mhm.
say that in some of your works, probably your current work, that you put some of your life into your work? Well, of course, not a Confederate dead zombie, but but would you say that that you put some of, like, things that you went through, or like things that inspired you into some of your works?
Oh, 100%. I mean, almost to the core of my creative, I should say creator owned properties, which there aren't many, but those that I have created just myself, are almost 100% inspired by the things that not only have I experienced myself, but things that I've researched and explored. So, like I said before, I'm a really big believer in energy. I practice meditation, but I'm also really into alternative theories of reality and history and the universe, and a lot of different things that are almost sciency, and that kind of side of things. So I really love the meeting of myth and science. And so my first book that I started this whole career change with was a superhero book. It was called Atlas Origins, and it was basically my take on a superhero. But my idea for his superpowers was, well, what if this man trained for long enough in a temple up in the mountains somewhere, to connect to the core of consciousness itself, the energy of life itself. And what could you do with that? So he was sort of like part Doctor Strange, part Shazam, because he was very mythic. So again, like I was very inspired to create that character, based off of a lot of these different esoteric takes on science and history. And then my second one, Feast or Famine, that I did with Joseph Cooper, that was basically a story about an alternate version of Nikola Tesla and Albert Einstein, who partnered together and went on a space adventure. So those stories are based off of all of the sciency stuff that I learned, alternate dimensions, multiverse, nanotechnology, things like that. And then actually, with Confederate Monster, there are some things in Confederate Monster that I have injected from this world, um, that have kind of played into the my unique way of reanimating the dead body. So, one of the things that I discovered in doing this again with Frankenstein is oftentimes with the Frankenstein story, it's all just lightning. Oh my God, we shot him full of lightning and he miraculously is alive now. Well, that might have worked for Mary Shelley's time period, but that doesn't work now because we're smart enough to realize like this doesn't work, like. So what I decided to do is I wanted to kind of inject a little bit more grounded, reality based, application to this reanimation process. So my little kind of twist on it was, well, it's not just the lightning to bring him back, right? You also have to inject the brain with a straight shot of DMT, otherwise known as dimethyltryptamine. A lot of people may not know that word. DMT is the most intense psychedelic on the face of the earth. And a lot of people suspect that DMT is something that controls our experience of consciousness. So if you have a lot of DMT, your mind expands to just grow and explore all of these multi-dimensional experiences, right? So my thought was, well, what if the monster's brain was saturated with an intense shot of DMT before he was shocked back to life? That might be able to bring the soul back into the body because you're opening up the mind to a broader sense of consciousness. So I thought, hey, that's kind of an interesting take on it. Let's throw that into the story and see if, it works. And I thought it kind of worked. It helps to explain it without it just being like woo woo magic electricity. Ooh.
Yeah, that's honestly, growing up, I was wondering, I wonder why they thought that just shocking a dead body, pure electricity from lightning. I wonder why they thought that would work. Because last time I checked, you would be burnt to crispy bits.
I mean, if I had to guess, I would say it might come from some kind of medical journal where they were just playing around with it and they got the muscles to like twitch and stuff. But like, that's the best I could come up with. So, I like I said, I wanted to kind of inject a little bit more of my research into the esoteric into it. Because I thought it would really help to make the story feel a little more grounded in today's time.
Yeah, like I will say, I do find that actually the way you reanimate Frankenstein, I do find that interesting. The fact that you use DMT. Now, I'm definitely intrigued. But well, my next question to you, because we're gonna wrap this up a little bit. But my next question to you
Sure.
is, I'm pretty sure you've watched some TV. You've got the quote the stray streaming services, the stray Amazon Prime,
Oh
HBO,
yeah.
Netflix, all of that. Would you say that indie comics are becoming more prevalent now that a lot of these indie books are being made into TV shows, movies, miniseries? Like, would you say that indie comics are finally starting to get the attention that they should have had all those years ago?
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, even when I was first starting out, 10 years ago, it was a major thing that was starting that back then. It wasn't obviously as prolific as it is now. But as I've been kind of coming up in the last 10 years, it is a very common conversation that's being had. Where we obviously see that Hollywood is sort of struggling, and they're struggling even more now to be able to attract audiences. And I think that what they've noticed is that a lot of people are intrigued by these new ideas that are coming out of the indie comics scene. I couldn't even imagine a show like The Boys being what it is now. 10 years ago, there's just no way. But I think for a lot of these current projects that are either out now or in development, they are coming out because a lot of these other projects laid the groundwork. And it's actually interesting. One of the things that I was just discussing the other day with someone was the the change that AI will have to not only um, our print media, but the digital streaming media. So, like one of the things that I was discussing was the concept that um, you know when we start to see AI video become more and more um, used and more and more applicable to the types of people that really want to kind of play with their content, right? They want to, change the actors out. They want to change the lighting, or they want to change if you want to really take it super far, I mean, people could potentially create their own movies starring themselves in the future, right? There's no reason why we couldn't do that, especially with what we're seeing now. I mean, I just watched an AI video the other day that just literally blew my mind. I'm like, how did they make that out of one still image? It doesn't make sense to me, but it's doing it. So, one of the thoughts that we were discussing was, um, will there come a time where AI has has basically taken over our traditional streaming media like movies and television to the point where people are so sick of it that they start turning back to traditional print media because AI can't do anything with a printed comic book. So
Right.
I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. But, everything comes back around. Vinyls came back around. I don't think anybody saw that happen.
Yeah.
So I would be curious to know in the next 5 to 10 years, is there going to be a shift back towards traditional print media because it can be more reliable, right?
Right.
Streaming services, I mean, literally anybody's going to be able to create anything that they want, and it can be a complete and utter fabrication, right? So I don't know what's going to happen, but I love deriving all kinds of inspiration from all different types of media. Really, the only thing that I don't get down on is video games. I just never got down on the video games. I don't know what it's about me, but I love my TV shows. I love my movies. I love my comics. Um, you know, yeah.
All right. Well, with all this indie stuff being adapted, and maybe we might see Confederate Monster in the near future.
I must say, out of any book that I have made just myself, and really any book that I've worked on, and that's not a diss at anybody that I've worked with, I really do think that Confederate Monster has the potential to be a TV show or a movie. I really do. I just purely because they're familiar characters. Everybody is at least somewhat aware of them in ways. Um, but it's a whole new take. It's a brand new kind of approach to these characters that hasn't been done before. And I have found that there's obviously a bit of controversy by using the word Confederate. But I think that in ways that could potentially create a bit of a conversation around it, right?
Right.
Because honestly, I've experienced a lot of people that come at me and say, "Oh, Confederacy, not for me." And I say back to them, "But did you read the second word in the title? Because it's monster." And if you actually like read the first issue, it's pretty clear that the Confederates are the villains. And I don't can't wrap my head around the fact that I can't use the Confederacy as the villains. It just drives me nuts.
Well,
Um,
we're gonna right now. We calling it right here. What time is it? 8 o'clock on the dot. Pacific. Wait, no, Central. I'm on Central on June 26th. Hey, Netflix, Bezos. Listen, you sitting on the gold mine if you pick this up. I'm just saying, you sitting on the gold mine. That's all. That's all I'm saying.
might be the next Stranger Things. Who knows? I'm not saying it will be, but who knows?
Hey, could be the next. Could be the next The Boys. Probably with probably just as violent, but hopefully a lot less nasty things that I. Oh that this season. Oh, I can't
Yeah,
wait.
it's been a little hard to watch. A little hard to watch.
I never know what a lobotomy looked like, but when I saw that, oh god,
Yeah, that was hard. That was actually harder than the previous one, and I was like, wow, oh,
yeah,
that's hard to watch.
oh yeah,
Ooh,
I've never I've never wanted to turn away from the screen so bad.
I feel you.
But
I feel you.
we're getting to the end. But hey, I'm going to do a game with you that I do with everybody. What I
Okay.
like to do is I like to give people the Mount Rushmore question, but we got a
Oh,
little. So I have a wheel. It's randomized, so we're going to go ahead and spin that wheel
okay.
to see what you get. Let
All
me just
right.
on the wheel. Oh, don't tell me. Oh, I don't got the wheel. I
Oh
thought,
no.
I had the wheel. Okay, you know what? You know what I can do? I can make the wheel real quick. We doing this behind the scene. Oh, there we go. Okay.
It's all
Yeah.
my energy. I'm screwing with it.
Oh, hold on, hold on. Wow. I did not know it shows my face right. Am I? Am I still here? I cannot. Hold on. Oh,
Yeah, I can't hear you, bud.
Yo, I thought I could get the wheel going, but it just crashed me out. So what I'm going to do is we pick. I'm gonna give you number 1 through 5, right? Now,
Okay.
do you pick the number? It goes. It's gonna be randomized. You got a choice between drinks, food, historical figures, movies, or TV.
Oh man.
So, no, so I'm gonna ask you to pick a number.
Okay.
Think about
Uh.
it before you pick.
Mhm. Mhm.
So 1 through 5, what you got?
Two.
2. You chose food, my friend.
Ah, that's what I wanted.
So, if you had made a Mount Rushmore of food, what would your Mount Rushmore be?
Oh boy. So, my wife is Mexican, so we eat a lot of Mexican food in our house, and I absolutely love my Mexican food. So I'm gonna try my best not to make this an entire Mount Rushmore of Mexican food, but I mean, I gotta put tacos on there, specifically street tacos, because I could crush like so many of those street tacos. And I literally just had some last night for dinner to celebrate the launch of the Kickstarter. So, yeah, street tacos definitely.
Okay.
Um, I gotta put I'm gonna just put pizza as a whole. I mean, I make pizza from scratch all the time. I love making my own pizzas. I love kind of creating my own flavors and combinations and stuff like that. But I'm also I feel like I'm a connoisseur because I there's so many different pizza places around where we're at. And Detroit style pizza is kind of like a big thing. I absolutely love Detroit style. I personally feel like it's the best. I mean, I know you're from Chicago. We might get into it about that, but I gotta love my Detroit style. So what we got? Street tacos. We got pizza. What else? Um, is ice cream a food?
I mean,
Not really. I
that's more,
mean,
that's more of a dessert. So,
yeah, it is a dessert. I'll give you that. Although I did eat it like food. But no, let's see. Man, I'm drawing a blank. You know what? I'm gonna put down. I got to put down something healthy because it sounds like I'm just eating junk food. So I'll put down like a really nice like uh grilled chicken, like barbecued chicken. I think like that to me is like quintessential like summer food. Like I eat that all the
so
time. So I gotta say like barbecue chicken.
are we saying
Because
a whole or just strictly barbecue chicken?
I mean, all different types of barbecue chicken,
Oh,
right? I mean, you can do all kinds of different takes on that. So I'm gonna just say like as a whole, just barbecue chicken.
okay.
Um, and then let's see from my fourth one. Um, gotta be some, gotta be some sesame chicken from Chinese, like a Chinese place for sure. I absolutely crush me some sesame chicken and some fried rice. Oh,
I just had that.
love it, love it. Not only is it delicious, but I feel like I could eat for a week off of like one combo.
Okay, okay. I think that was your 4. Yeah,
Yeah, I
okay.
think that's pretty fair. It's
Yeah, pretty fair, nice one. But hey, I don't want to keep you no much longer. We've been talking for almost an hour now.
all
Uh,
good.
but people, hey, I put the link in the comments. I'm going to put the link in the Facebook as well. Check out this man's Kickstarter, Confederate Monsters. His unique take on Frankenstein during the Civil War. Yes, I know that you want to pick it up already. That Kickstarter is up and running. And sir, when do we expect this Kickstarter to to end, like the campaign?
Sure. So we're going to be running till the last Friday of July. So it's, I believe, the 26th. So we still got almost a whole month. I mean, we just launched yesterday. So we got some time, but the campaign is it's slowly getting out the gate here. So it needs quite a lot of support. So anything that you guys can do, to help me out would be greatly appreciated. And I must say, not just for issue 4. You know, you can get all the previous issues with this campaign as well, including a prequel issue, issue 0. And issue 0 is all done in black and white, and it tells the story of how Igor got to America. So basically, we see what happened when they reanimated the monster for the first time and the bloody, grisly havoc that he wreaked all across the village.
Yeah, so get it now, y'all, or I will personally come in a Frankenstein costume to your house and slap the shit out you. But but hey, Dave, it's been a pleasure talking with you. I've had a lot of fun. We've chatted a lot, got to know a little bit about you, saw some of your artwork. Now you were feeding into my comic addiction, where I must buy anything I like. But hey, it's for a good cause, but not for my wallet. But hey, I've had so much fun to you, Dave. Hopefully, have you back on the show sometime. And people, like I said, also, Dave, where can people find you at?
So you can follow me on social media with the handle that's on the screen underneath my face, Dave Swartz Art. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Insta, Twitter, X, whatever its name is now. You can also go to my website, daveswartzart.com. And then obviously the Kickstarter is pretty easy to find on all of those platforms. But yeah, you can feel free to give me a follow. And then if you want to sign up for my newsletter, you can go to my website. There's a bar at the very top where you can sign up for my newsletter. And with that, you will get a very free comic book when you sign up.
All right, y'all. Hey, you know where we coming from. Bring the Popcorn Podcast on Facebook, um, Instagram, YouTube, Twitch. I think we have a kick account. I think we do. Just follow us on all those platforms. And hey, we've been gone for a while, I know, but we are definitely coming back with some heat. We got some shows talking about the boys, Star Wars Acolyte. Hopefully, they can change my view on Star Wars. Uh, and yeah, man, just a lot of things coming down the pipeline. But for now, hey, y'all, remember when you come to these reviews, interviews, and whatever else we do, just remember to always bring the popcorn. All right, y'all, we are out of here. Peace.
Later.
Raider.